Hey everyone, and welcome to Tony for Setting Atlas Straight. I mean, Tony for you. SMT has tons of demons. That lends me no end of topics to cover on this channel, with its primary focus being lore and all that. Today, I wanted to do a more opinion-based video where I give my picks for demons I wish were in SMT, but aren't. The criteria of this list will be demons that are not in any mainline or well-known spin-off game. That means, if it's exclusive to demikids, RONDE, or Last Bible, it doesn't count. This will be a sort of rapid-fire lore video focusing on what I think are some extremely interesting mythological figures, creatures, and historical legends. Before we get into the list, I'd like to thank this video's sponsor, Bye. If you're watching this video, you're probably into Japanese media, whether it be anime, manga, games, what have you. But some of the nicest stuff is, oh man, quite pricey. Well, you don't have to worry about that anymore. All thanks to Bye. Bye is a middleman website that can place bids and orders on your behalf on Japanese storefronts. Then it gets shipped right to you, without the ridiculous markup. With available websites like Amazon Japan, Rakuten, Mercari, Yahoo Japan, you'll always find what you're looking for. Now you can rep your love for Jack Bros without breaking the bank. Finally. It offers support in several different languages, and it ships worldwide, so wherever you are, it's got you covered. Bye offers tons of different shipping and payment methods as well, so no matter what your situation is, there's no hassle. If you're interested, sign up using the link in the description below. If you use it, you'll get 2,000 yen off your first purchase using the service. Sign up, save your money, and use Bye. First on the list is Samson, from the biblical book, Judges. Taking place in the time after the Jewish people entered the Promised Land led by Moses and told to be faithful to God from Joshua. The book focuses on the Jewish people's cycles of being freed, thriving, falling to sin, being oppressed, and then being freed again. It's a somewhat depressing book in the Bible showing humans are weak and fall to sin time and time again, but also a hopeful book exemplifying God's unwillingness to give up on his creations. The Jewish people at the time had no kings or queens, rather they had spiritual warrior chiefs called judges, a lot like tribal chieftain. The book goes over 6 judges, Samson being the final judge, and by far the worst. Samson was a child of prophecy, and from birth was understood to be the Jews' next great deliverer. When his mother was pregnant, she was told by an angel that neither she nor her son would drink or eat anything with grapes, and after the baby is born, never cut his hair. When Samson grew up, he had Herculean strength, and killed thousands upon thousands of Philistines, but he was a man of great ignorance, violence, and sinfulness. Time and time again, he would kill out of anger rather than duty or righteousness, sleep with prostitutes, and break bread with evil oppressors. He even married one. Samson disregarded his duties so much that his own people were forced to turn on him in hopes that the Philistine oppressors would go easier on them. The very people Samson was meant to save lost so much faith in him, they thought it better to give him over to the enemy. In doing this, they were just met with more violence and bloodshed. The most famous story involving Samson is when he was delivered over to the Philistines from his people. Samson broke free from his restraints, picked up a donkey's jawbone, and with it killed 1,000 men. Samson's downfall came from his second lover Delilah, who was approached by the Philistines and offered a hefty sum of money to find any way to take him down. After 3 attempts to find out his weakness, with attempts on his life failing every time, Samson finally relented and told her, "No razor has ever come upon my head, for I have been a Nazarite to God from my mother's womb. If I am shaven, then my strength will leave me, and I shall become weak, and be like any other man." When he slept, Delilah shaved his head, and the Lord left him. Samson was taken by the Philistines, had his eyes gouged out, and imprisoned to do hard labor. Despite all this, his hair started growing back again. His moment of deliverance would only come after his downfall. Sometime after his imprisonment, Samson was brought out to entertain his depraved captors. He used this time to beg the Lord one last time for the strength he once had. When the Philistines were giving praise to Dagon, their god, Samson was empowered again and pushed 2 pillars with all his might, bringing down the temple on the rulers of the Philistines and killing over 3,000 people. A tragic story, but an incredibly interesting character. In Shin Megami Tensei, he could be portrayed in his pre- or post-downfall with godlike strength or blind fury. A great hero falling to temptation could make for an incredibly compelling boss fight or persona of the devil or even death arcana. A well-known biblical figure just waiting for the Shin Megami Tensei touch. Baba Yaga, the Wild Witch of the Woods. A classic wicked witch with a unique twist in Slavic folklore. Deep within the woods, you'll find a clearing sectioned off by a fence made of human bones. Within the clearing, you'll see a hut suspended in the air by enormous chicken legs, with Baba Yaga herself flying around in a giant pestle and mortar. Traveling throughout the forest, she kidnaps wandering children and grinds them into paste, or shreds them apart with her teeth said to be sharper and more durable than any metal. The origins of Baba Yaga are unknown, but a poem in 1840 by Nikolai Nekrasov says she was the creation of the devil, mixing 12 evil women together and sent out into the world to commit heinous acts and return to hell for boons from Lucifer. Baba Yaga's home cannot be entered without uttering a special phrase, that being, "Turn your back to the forest, your front to me." One of the most famous stories regarding Baba Yaga is the story of Vasilisa the Beautiful. In this story, Vasilisa's mother passes away and leaves her with a wooden doll, which she says, if given food, will guide her in any trial. Vasilisa's father eventually remarries a horrendous woman who works her to the bone every day out of spite and jealousy. Vasilisa is visited by many suitors for her beauty, but her mother rejects them all as her daughters are older and her pride will not allow her stepdaughter to be married before her own. One night, while her father was out on a long business trip, all the lights but one were to be snuffed out in her home. By accident, one of the sisters extinguishes the flame and blames it on Vasilisa. Outraged, the mother sends out Vasilisa to get light from Baba Yaga deep in the woods. The young girl travels deep in the woods, found the fence made of human bones, and waited for Baba Yaga to come in the night. When Vasilisa told Baba Yaga of her request, the witch agreed to help if the young girl could complete a series of tasks, starting with ordinary housework and eventually escalating to separating poppy seeds from grains of soil and organizing sound and rotten corn. The workload was too much for the young girl, and she fed her wooden doll out of desperation for her mother. And after she succumbed to her exhaustion and fell asleep, the wooden doll completed the rest of the tasks for her. When Baba Yaga returns, she uses 3 pairs of disembodied hands to sort through her work. After finding nothing wrong, she asks how the young girl did it. Vasilisa responds, "With my mother's blessing." Upon hearing this, Baba Yaga is greatly disturbed, shoves a skull lantern full of burning coals in her hand and tells her to leave. Upon her return, the girl finds out her family has been unable to light or carry any fire in their home at all since the start of her adventure. When Vasilisa displays the light she was sent out to get, it instantly burned her mother and stepsisters to ashes. Understandably freaked out, Vasilisa buried the torch in the ground so it could do no more harm and moved to the Russian capital to become a cloth maker. In Shin Megami Tensei, Baba Yaga could even be 2 demons, with her and her chicken-legged hut. An interesting and not entirely evil otherworldly boogeyman-like entity, giving out blessings to the worthy and devastating any who cross her. More folklore creatures would be very welcome in the game, and Slavic folklore is always something else. Gille de Rais, France's very real boogeyman, close companion of the one and only Joan of Arc and renowned general of the 100 Years' War. Having earned the title of Marshal of France and retiring from the military a well-respected and wealthy man, despite all his accolades, he later became one of France's most evil and feared villains. One of the most sadistic and disturbing individuals I have ever researched. Born 1405, in Gille's early years he showed great intellectual ability, but his parents passed away when he was only 15 and he was taken in by his grandfather. An arranged marriage was set up for him thanks to his new guardian, and he went on to have an illustrious military career. Gille showed immense bravery and strategic ability, taking captive key members of opposing forces. Gille fought alongside Joan of Arc on many key battles, such as the Siege of Orleans, crushing the English forces at the height of their power. After receiving the title of Marshal of France, he retired from the military, built a chapel, and used it as a theater for the people of France. Gille used almost all of his personal funds to put on an immensely costly play, providing food and drink to the viewers and paying for hundreds of actors' talent and costumes, which were only worn once per performance. Gille's family became worried about his outrageous spending and spoke to the King of France. The king's orders were to denounce Gille, forbid him from selling any more of his land, and no one else in France was allowed to enter a contract with him. It was at this moment that is thought to be the point at which Gille turned to evil. I won't be going into specifics of what Gille did, and I usually encourage further research into people and topics discussed in these videos, but Gille de Rais is a unique case as he is incredibly disturbing and evil, so be warned. In search of more funding, Gille sought out those versed in alchemy and the occult. He met a man named Pretali, who convinced him that in order to acquire great riches, they needed to summon a demon named Baron, and to do that, they required the parts of children. And from that, the massacre started. Gille grew to take great pleasure in torturing and killing his victims. even going so far as to comfort them in their agony, and only moments after seeing a small spark of hope in their eyes, killing them. Gille's horrific acts came to an end when he kidnapped the wrong person, a cleric instead of an innocent child, and was subsequently investigated. Due to this investigation, they tried him on multiple counts of murder and heresy. All those involved were found guilty and hanged for their heinous deeds after a detailed confession from Gille. Some say Gille was set up by the government and the church on account of no physical evidence being found to prosecute him, and the methods of getting a confession were questionably ethical, to say the least. His guilt is also doubted because upon his death, the French government gained immediate ownership of all of his remaining land. Quite a coincidence. Most notably, Aleister Crowley, a prominent figure in SMT specifically, believed Gille to simply be a seeker of knowledge, but most historians agree that he was a despicable and vile man. Shin Megami Tensei could put a unique spin on this odd historical figure, working with the severity of his guilt, or even if he was guilty at all. Was he a desperate and passionate man terrible with money? Was he the stuff of nightmares and living embodiment of evil? Or was he something in between? I'd be excited to see how they portray him. Like I said, he is insanely disturbing, but they have the Night Stalker and Jack the Ripper in the game, so this stuff isn't for kids. Now for some honorable mentions that don't have much lore to them or are too deep to quickly go over in this video. Umibozu, a Japanese yokai said to live in the ocean bent on capsizing ships. They are reported to have heads like shaved Buddhist monks with a cloudy body and tentacles like a kraken. Skinwalker, of native folklore, meaning by means of it, it goes on all fours in the Navajo language. Witches in the Navajo culture are taught of both good and evil. Because of this, some fall to the temptations of sin. Specific knowledge of Skinwalker lore is difficult to obtain, as the Navajo people almost universally are unwilling to speak of it. But from what we know, Skinwalkers possess animals associated with trickery such as coyotes, or even the bodies of humans to commit some sort of evil. Finally, Ahasverus, a Jewish shoemaker who hated Jesus Christ. As Jesus was carrying the cross to Golgotha, he passed by Ahasverus' home. The man pushed Jesus over and mocked him. In response, Jesus said, "I will move on, but you will tarry until I come again." Ahasverus was cursed with immortality until the second coming of Christ at the end of days. Well, that covers some interesting figures I think deserve a spot in SMT. This was also me testing if you guys would be interested in more general lore and mythology explanations, even outside of SMT, so let me know what you guys think. Comment down below your picks for demons you'd want to see in upcoming Shin Megami Tensei games. Special thanks to AutoShift, Frankie Stoned, John, Mr. 8 Eyes, Rex Zakel, and many more for supporting the channel on Patreon. If you'd like to support, check the link in the description below. Also, join my Discord if you want a place to chat. Thanks for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next Tony for You. Have a good one.